All right, welcome everybody to this remote interview. My name is Lisette, and I'm interviewing people and companies doing great things remotely. And today on the line, I have something a little bit different than what I normally have. Today, I have Ronny Leber. Ronny, you are a TV moderator, but also an event moderator. And by event, I mean news events, sports events. I saw a lot of stadiums when I was looking over your profile, corporate events. You're a legacy coach, and one of the very impressive things on your profile of many is that you're one of the about 100 Tony Robbins trainers in the world. That is really impressive. That must be very hard to do. So I'm extremely interested in talking with you. So let's start with the opening question, which is not what does your virtual office look like, which is what I normally ask, but what does your home studio like? What do you need?
So first of all, thank you very much for this introduction, Lisette, and it's a pleasure to be here on your podcast, and also a pleasure for everybody listening to be also in your headphones, your speaker, or wherever you're joining us right now. What is my home office or home studio look like? So first of all, I would say I have two kinds of studios. So one is what you're seeing right now with basically that's at my desk, but also I have three screens in front of me right now with the computer and then like a laptop, and also two screens on left and right. I do have a ring light behind it. I have here my Rode NT USB mic in front of me. And also I have it set up, but I'm not using it right now. I have it set up as well, a Canon M50, Canon EOS M50 as a webcam. And over there, which you cannot see right now, I have a white and a green screen. As a background, I have several lightings, and I have like a real studio there as well.
So you can record videos
Exactly.
and all right. Can you record newscasts from your home?
Probably I could. Yeah, I have a teleprompter also somewhere set up, although on TV, I usually have not been using a teleprompter, but I basically have pretty much everything I need here.
Wow, amazing. And so did you have this before the pandemic, or was the pandemic one of the things that sort of said, I need to boost up my home studio?
I actually did have that before the pandemic. Although funny enough, in this place here, we just moved here before the pandemic. But in general, I already pretty much had everything because of I've already been using that before. But yeah,
Right.
so I actually have had already like 10 years of experience in a home studio, and so suddenly everybody else was getting along the line as well.
Right. So during the pandemic, you saw everybody's coming to you for advice on like, okay, what do I need? So you have done a lot of events live, in person, on stages, and you've done a lot of events virtually, especially during the pandemic. I think everything moved virtually. I'd like to start this conversation by asking you sort of your main differences that you saw between being a facilitator or an event host online versus being one in person?
Well, that's a great question. I believe that for many people, first of all, they needed to, before the pandemic, online event usually was something like a webinar. It was something like, okay, you go there, or basically a Zoom meeting in a way. But an online event before the pandemic, in most cases, did not really deserve the word event. It
Right.
was just a meeting or something like that. And I remember when I was hosting in 2021 for Canon, the camera company, I was hosting their European kickoff virtually. And what I remember back then was basically they called it even kickoff meeting. And they wanted to have it as an event. And I said, the first thing that you need to change is the wording. We need to call it an event because it also needs to feel like an event. So in order to produce a virtual event, you actually need to create something that also feels like an event for the people listening or watching. And how do you do that? You need to actually get the people in the event. That means they need to be part of it. You need to engage them in the event, not just a broadcast like a TV broadcast, but also to engage them, to ask them to, and ideally, if it's possible, that they can also be part of it, like that you can see them and that they can see each other. because like that, suddenly it's like, wow, oh, this is cool. And then when you're at a virtual event where you also have a virtual director's room, and then they're putting up different people on the screen, and you're seeing all the other people also who are engaging and who are playing full out. That's fun. That's cool. And suddenly you're like, oh wow, that really feels like a virtual, like a real event. You got music, music, you got lighting, you got production value, all those kind of things. And it's not just virtual event does not mean I'm just sitting at home with my computer and a microphone and I'm here and like, hey, that's an awesome event. Really, on a real event, like an in-person event or a live event, you also bring in the production. So do it as well as a virtual on a virtual stage.
Now, having people just show up to a Zoom meeting is pretty easy, but having somebody learn, like, I mean, you can't have that kind of interaction necessarily in a Zoom meeting, that production, right? You have to use some kind of a tool out there, some sort of an online events tool, I'm assuming. Um, how do you get people to use that tool? That's like one level above, like
Well,
webinars are
actually,
easy.
to be honest, we have had online or virtual events in the Tony Robbins world, for example, with 30,000 people via Zoom.
Wow.
And everybody was there on camera, 30,000 people. So it's possible and it's incredible. And it's really, the production value is insane. Also, of course, it's coming from a big studio. And just on the studio, they had like, or they have huge LED walls, front and back with 8K or even 12K resolution. And you have like just on those LED walls, you can basically see 3,000 participants at a time.
Amazing.
Who are there on video, and you can swap it around, and you can make them bigger and so on, like everything. So it's really cool. And then you have a director who basically puts also people on the screen on the signal that you also see and so on. And you have a chat and you can engage. And so it's really awesome. And of course, 30,000 people are not just in one Zoom room.
Right.
There are plenty of Zoom rooms. There are like 100 of Zoom rooms. But at the same time, when you have 100 Zoom rooms, you also need to operate 100 Zoom rooms. And then they need to be, like everything needs to be interconnected. That's quite a production behind it, but it's possible. And it's awesome when it really works like that.
Right. So like you've got the Tony Robbins version of it, and then you've got us amateurs out there putting together, our small workshops. On the other hand, what it does do is gives inspiration for it. You don't need a fancy tool, but the bigger and the more higher quality you want to go, you do have to invest in the production of something like that.
Of course, and you can also, I mean, this is like the high end, yeah. But you could
Right.
also go with, let's say, a few hundred people if you have your event, or and you have like a little stage set up. You have maybe a LED wall behind you. You have a few TV screens in front of you, and then you see as a speaker, you can see the people in front of you on the TVs. You have maybe 2-3 cameras, and also behind you, you can also put some people on the walls and so on. So that's also possible. It all depends, of course, on how many people you got, on the budget, but basically it's about creating an experience together with the people, for the people.
Right. So that is, I think, the key component of the whole thing is that you're creating the experience for the people that are attending. It is not a webinar. It is not supposed to be broadcast, because that is one of the things that you always ask, like, if you're going to be doing a live webinar, what is the webinar for? Right? If you're going to do it live, then you're going to have some sort of audience interaction of one form or another. Otherwise, you might as well just send a video. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. So, and then might as well go on YouTube and just find the video that you're looking for. So indeed, the power is in the interaction. So it sounds like you have a lot of experience giving presentations and yeah, facilitating, which is a whole separate skill besides giving presentations. I want to talk about how to present on video so that you can then, without a big production, so that you can, when you're on video, that you're working together well with somebody, that you can connect with the person, but that also that you get respect from that you demand respect from the people that you're speaking to. There's sort of a confidence that's needed when we're online. How do you do that? Or
With
what are your
on
tips?
video, we're talking about live or just for YouTube or in general.
In general, like what we're doing right here, like say, for instance, in online meetings, and I'm meeting with my boss and a number of other higher ups in the organization. I want to be on video in a way that, yeah, looks good and promotes confidence.
All right, there are a few key components actually to be great on video. And the first thing is what we naturally do, of course, when we are talking with somebody eye to eye, is that we are looking the person in the eye. So we are looking at the person, and that obviously naturally draws us when we're in a Zoom meeting, for example, we're looking
Down.
at the screen. That means like right now, I would be looking at you. I'm looking at you and looking at the screen. And in my eyes, it's like I'm looking you in the eye. But what you are seeing is I'm looking down. I'm not looking you in the eye, because the way to look you in the eye is actually to look at the camera lens. And the camera lens at a laptop, usually it's like positioned above the screen. Or if you have a camera, you really need to look at the camera. And that means just like that, you can actually create a connection to your audience, because then they're going to feel connected. They're going to feel, oh, wow, he's really looking at me. So that's the first point. The second thing is about the whole body language itself. It's still, you still need to position yourself. You still need to, like, you cannot just show up like, all right, I'm here, I'm hanging, like I'm crouching over, my back is bent and so on. No, it's really, if you have an opportunity to stand, great. But otherwise, also when you sit in an active position. Also the way you use your hands, which is body language as well. You need to make sure, where is my screen? Do I know how far I can go with the hands in order to still fit the screen? Because if I'm doing like big, huge movements, but the hands are out, or the hands are below and people cannot see the hands anymore. There's a study actually that just by somebody seeing your hands, the trust factor is so much higher. So for example, if you really want to sell something for online, or if you want to use video to sell, or it's not just to sell, to convince somebody, to persuade somebody, to influence someone, the other person needs to be able to see your hands. It doesn't necessarily need to be all the time, but at least at times, because if your hands are just the whole time down there, it's like when you go to a casino and you have somebody like playing the whole time with the hands under the table. What is he hiding? Or what is she hiding down there? Maybe it's got an ace down their sleeve or something. Yeah. So you really want to build the trust factor and show your hands as well by using your body language. The next thing is about your voice, because when we are in a room with somebody, then of course we're naturally projecting our voice. Or when we are talking on a stage, we're projecting our voice to the audience. When we are on a virtual stage or in a Zoom meeting, oftentimes the microphone is very close to us, the computer is very close to us, and we tend to naturally just project the voice to the microphone. Or if even we are alone in our room, so maybe you're just actually projecting your voice like you're talking to yourself. Well, I need to buy the groceries today, or I need to do this, or and this and that. But then you're not projecting it anymore, and the other person can feel it, because through your projection, that's also the energy you're putting out. So basically, you need to project your voice not just to the microphone, not just to the computer, but actually to the end of the room, or even beyond it. And another thing actually that is very important is the lighting. What light do you have on you? Because I mean, I guess we've all been there, and there is, I would say, pretty much nobody that has not been in virtual meetings in the last years. And we've all seen it, that somebody who has an amazing background sitting in front of a window, and there's maybe the ocean, or there's some mountains or something incredible in the background, which is awesome. And you could not see the person. Like the person was totally in the shadow. You were thinking, okay, is this now the witness protection program? Or maybe this person is going to make you an offer that you can't refuse. But it's not anymore something where you feel the connection, because you cannot see the other person. So even if you have a beautiful background behind you, which has a lot of light, which is okay, but then you need to have a lot of light in front of you, because your face always needs to be lit the most. The other person needs to be able to see you. And last but not least, it's also about what kind of background do I have? It both is okay, virtual background or a real background, which I mean, like, the background that's really there. But if you're using a real background, make sure that it's set up intentionally, that it's set up in a way that it doesn't distract, that it's set up in a way that it's not, oh yeah, I'm now actually in the kids' room and behind me is all the kids' laundry laying on the bed and so on, and or some open doors and so on. And so that's not really, it's not about being professional or not, but it's about being distractive or not. Because the point is, if your background is taking the focus away from you, you lost their attention, and then you're not able to influence anymore. You're not able to, like, if after the meeting they're talking more about your background than about your message, something went wrong.
Right. And this, just to be clear for the audience, like this is not just for your casual meeting with your teammate. I'm talking about presenting online or being in a meeting, that's really important online. You want to do, if you're talking to your boss or it's an important meeting, like you kind of want to show up. So that's what that's what I'm focused on. So I love it. So looking at the camera, of course, I have such a hard time with that. Oh, I can't wait till the AI technology does it for us automatically.
There is already something. It's already there.
Yeah, I've got to check it out. And I've got so many tools, of course, it's all on the list. But also the hands, I never thought of that. So now I'm going to really be thinking about like showing my hands and the lighting in the background. I love that. So of course, yeah, really presenting ourselves well online. I've got to ask about hybrid events and your experience with hybrid events. We've got some people in person and some people online. What are your thoughts on hybrid events?
Great question. And hybrid events are the future. Absolutely. And I've seen, I've been on stage at hybrid events, and I've seen it all. I've seen it from basically just, let's say, 300 people in the audience, like in the live audience, and then another few thousand people, or even hundreds of thousands of people in the virtual stream. So you need to always address two audiences. You need to address the audience that is in front of you, but at the same time, also you need to address the audience that is on camera, that is actually right now watching through the camera, through a production. But the point is to really look them in the eye. That means look in the eye of the people who are in front of you in the audience, but also at times look in the eye at the camera. If you are able to build a connection with the people who are live with you in the room, then also just take from time to time the time to look at the camera, to look also to address the virtual audience as well, like address them intentionally. And if you take shares, because oftentimes at a live event, you take shares, like you ask the audience and then you're asking them something. Also engage the virtual audience as well, if it's possible. Like if you have the opportunity, also the technical setup, take shares also from the virtual audience, put them on screen for everybody to see also here at the live event. And that's a great opportunity so that the virtual audience does not feel excluded, that they don't just feel like they're just watching a stream, but that they feel that they are also part of the program.
Right. So it's really a matter. And of course, you've got to have facilitators for the online people. And of course, just like you have volunteers or staff for the in-person people, right? So you want to have people who are helping online, but again, it's about the production. So why do you think hybrid events are the future? Is it just that we can include so many more people, or just that the technology exists, or why not just go back to in-person events?
I believe that what we saw in the last years, there are also some incredible advantages in basically online events, which is the travel part. If you want to be part of a conference, it's great to go there. And I would say that the biggest advantage of being in person is the networking aspect. That you can network with people there. You can go to dinner, you can go to lunch, you can actually really like grab them and like, hey, let's talk for 10 minutes or something. And that's something that's very hard to do online. Mm-hmm. But if you're just there for the content, if you just want to get the content, if you want to have the experience for yourself, and you don't care about the networking, and you don't want to travel around the world possibly. How cool is that you can do it out of your home? You can do it out of wherever you are. And that is really awesome. And so I believe that in order to actually include both audiences, the audience that wants to be there, that wants to feel it, that wants to feel the energy right there, that wants to have the networking, you have them there, maybe at a premium. And then you have the other audience that is actually also included, but they're at home, they're in their office, they're wherever they are around the world. And that's why I believe this is something incredible that you can do. And especially if you have a conference that's only being held once a year, for example, awesome.
Yeah.
If you can include both. And you can also, as an organizer, you can really upscale also your profits in a way, because you always have a limitation about the space that you have in person.
Right.
You don't really have a limitation online.
It increases your production costs, of course, because you are doing now two different, one event for two audiences that really do need to be taken into consideration. But indeed, it's an additional stream. And if I think about a conference, there's a conference I really love in Australia. But man, it's, if I'm going to travel around the world, I'm going to go see my sister and my nephews and not go to a conference in Australia. So indeed, I would much rather attend online and have part of it than none of it.
And Lisette, yes, you have additional production costs, but also you have additional revenue stream, because
Right.
you're actually opening up to a whole new market that otherwise would not be able to come.
Right, right. And that's, I think that's the biggest benefit of these hybrid events, is just the people that you're able to draw. You can have both. You can have the people that want to network. Indeed, it's not just about the content, it's about the quick conversations and just meeting people. And then for those that just want the content or can't travel, then you've got, you've at the minimum got a content and all the other online participants.
And there's one great thing as well about being at a virtual event or being online. You always have a front row seat. It's like sitting in the first row,
Oh,
because in a big arena, when you have, for example, 10,000 people there, there are going to be people way up somewhere in the back that are just going to see a tiny dot on the stage, and they're going to see all the big screens. But you're sitting at home in front of your computer. You don't have to line up at the bathroom. You can get the food whenever you want. There are no lines for restaurants and so on. You can order whatever. So you can be there in your pajamas, whatever you want. And it's really comfortable as well.
yeah, sure. I have to say, I did not expect you to be so enthusiastic about the virtual events because so much of your experience is live.
Yes, and I have had great experiences with both. And of course, for me as a presenter or as a host or also as a keynote speaker, I love to be live. But also I can tell you, to be working from here and basically getting paid the same money without having to travel anywhere, it's also quite a cool thing, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, it's not indeed. You have more choice about where you want to go. I remember listening to a podcast with Seth Godin, and he says, if you want me to speak inside New York, the New York area, then my prices are pretty reasonable. But if you want, as soon as you leave, ask me to leave the state, it's like 100 times more, just because he hates traveling so much. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand. That makes sense. All right, we're nearing the end of our time, but I still have 8 million questions to go. There's one question that really got my attention when I was looking through your bio, and that was how you can achieve peak state at any moment. And the reason why I caught my attention is because I'm also a public speaker. I do a lot of online presentations as well as live. And indeed, you don't really have a choice whether you're not, whether you're feeling good or not. If you're facilitating or hosting an event or of any kind, you've got to be on. How do you do it? What are your tips for that?
Exactly. It is like that. Like when it's showtime, it's showtime, and you have no choice. Like when the light is like, okay, now you go on, you got to be in great state, or you got to be able to manage your state. And think about it, if you compare it to an athlete, and you go to the Olympics, and once every 4 years you got your chance, and maybe it's once in a lifetime, you got your chance to shine on the biggest stage. You need to be on, otherwise you're doomed. So basically, how do you do that? Every state is an emotion. It's an emotional state, basically. So how do you be in how can you be in the best emotional state that you possibly can be? The secret is that every emotional state only has 3 components to it. The first component is the physiology, the body, the way you're breathing, the way your body's positioned, the way you're moving, also what you've eaten before. Have you slept enough? Have you drunk enough water and so on? Or maybe you have a hangover from yesterday that's maybe not the best recipe for success. Yeah. So basically, it's everything that has to do with your body, with how you use your body. And it's also, this component is also the quickest to change, because that you can change in a moment. You can basically do some exercises, some jumping jacks. You can go on a rebounder to refuel yourself with oxygen. So all those kind of things, you can move, and just through that you can get your body flowing and your emotions flowing.
Yeah,
That's why.
Stephen Colbert, from the comedian in the US, he says that before he goes on stage, he slaps himself on a cheek on one side and then the other side, like really hard, just enough to like, make the cheeks red and like get your attention. And then he goes out on, like, that's his ritual before going out on stage. Whatever works, I guess.
Yeah, and there's a saying, emotion is created by motion. So it's all about really the way that you use your body is directly impacting the way you feel. So that's number one. The second thing is, what do you focus on? So, because what you're going to focus on is going to make a huge difference on how you feel. And at any given moment, we have millions of choices on what we focus on. It can be something internal. It can be something about a memory that we have, or about a future experience that we want to have or that we want to avoid. It can be about something that we're perceiving right now, something we see, something we smell, something we hear, something our skin is actually at that moment perceiving. Or you can even focus on your heartbeat. You can slow down. You can focus on something that's going on inside of your body. You can focus on yourself. You can focus on the audience. And what I found was what works the best is to focus actually on the outcome that you want your audience to have, the experience that you want them to have, so that you already see them on the other side. You see them on how great it is that they actually had the time with you, because they're going to have a great time. And you see already what you want them to feel, what you want them to experience. So that's something.
You're projecting,
Exactly.
like by the end of this, I want you to be laughing and happy, or whatever it is. Like that would be my projection. Yeah.
And not just that you want
Love
them
it.
to, they're going to. So you already see them laughing. You already see them that they love that. You always see them like, this is beautiful. And thirdly is the language. So we had physiology, we had focus, and we had the language, or the meaning. So what does it mean? Communication usually, all right, we know that communication is not just words, but the way that we talk is through our words. And the first talk that we need to master is to talk with ourselves. Like, how do we put language to ourselves? How do we talk with ourselves? And a lot of us are really good at beating ourselves up. Like when something did not go great, like, oh my God, this was embarrassing. I sucked. And this is probably just a nice language that I'm using right now. Yeah. Because we got all kinds of things how to phrase that. So that's the first thing you actually need to take care of. How do I communicate with myself? Or, for example, that some people are really good at putting themselves into panic. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, it's going to suck. I'm going to be so bad. It's going to be horrible. And using all kinds of words that are not going to put you in a great state. So you actually need to monitor what is going on in my mind right now, to change that actively. All right, breathe, take a breath, breathe deep, relax. All right, what experience do you want them to have? That's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. And so just by changing your own communication first, and that's also going to have a huge impact on the way that you actually going to talk with them. And to use an empowering language, to use something that actually lifts them up and lifts yourself up instead of putting them down and yourself. So those three components, once again, physiology, focus, language. And when you put them all together, you're going to create a feeling. But not just that, every feeling has those three components. So if I tell you right now, think about a depressed person. I believe everybody, also if you're listening right now, you can describe a depressed person.
Right.
How is
Hunched
that?
over.
Exactly, because you know
Yeah.
it. Or a euphoric person, you also know it. So basically, it's just about describing who are you at your best. What is the physiology? How is your body when you're at your best? How is your focus? Where is your focus going when you bring the best results? And also, what are you saying to yourself when you're at your peak, when you're at your best?
You know, one of the things that I thought of as you were saying this is you don't have to believe it forever, right? Just believe it for the time that you're on stage or for the time that you're giving it. Because I was thinking, oh, right, you can change it around. And immediately I thought like, oh my God, but how do you have to do that forever? And I'm like, oh, you don't have to do it forever. Just have to maintain it for a little while until, yeah, the event's over. Back in your hotel room later on or wherever you go back, when the event is over, you
And
can
like I
rest it.
said, the key is also nothing in life has a meaning except the meaning we give it.
Right.
So it's and there can be a lot of people can experience the same event. Everybody's going to give a different meaning to it. And it's up to you what meaning you give to it. If it's an empowering meaning or if it's a meaning that is disempowering.
Ooh, I love it. So taking control of that. All right, I've got one last question, or I guess two. Okay, two and a half questions, but the last one's really, really easy. So, how, as a presenter, you've gone on stage, you've been in the lights, you've had a lot of eyes on you. I always personally feel exhausted after these kind of things. I don't know about you. That's just my response. Some people really feel high, but how does one take care of oneself? How do you take care of yourself after having been in the spotlight?
For me, I believe the best thing in order to take care of myself is to love what you're doing. If you like, for me, it's always, I don't really think about being in the spotlight because it's not about me. I go out there to serve. Like I'm there for the audience. I'm there to give and to just, it's all about creating an emotional experience, taking the audience on a journey. And since I've been growing up, I always love to entertain others. And that was lighting me up. And so if I'm able to light up other people, I'm totally fulfilled. And I love that.
Oh, I love it. So you walk away from that feeling really good because you have indeed served the audience, which is what you're there for. As a facilitator and a host, indeed, it is all about the audience and their experience. I think that's the perfect thing to end on.
And also, by the way, also if you, what I see oftentimes when people are inexperienced or when people are afraid, they're not having that focus on the audience. They're not having the focus on what can I do for them. Then usually focus is in yourself, on your own fears, your own doubts. But the moment you actually put your fears aside and your ego aside, and you just focus on what you can bring to the audience, what you can deliver, all your fears are going away as well.
Well, it's still scary to get on stage. I mean, right, it's still always scary to go on stage. But indeed, that was sort of the lead up, a great lead up to the last question, which is what is your advice for people who are just starting out? Like, okay, they want to give presentations online, like where, and they're really scared to do it. Would you just say like have better self-talk, feel the fear and do it anyway? What would you say to those people?
Well, first of all, that's a great question because there's a multi-dimensional answer to that. But one of the things, of course, is think about why you're doing it. Why are you doing it? Because the stronger your why, the easier it's going to get. And then also think about what is your outcome. What is your outcome? Like, what is the outcome that you want to achieve? And who is your audience? Who is your audience? Like, who are you talking to? And then from that point on, you start to explore, okay, like what is actually that I want to talk about? Or what is it maybe that I'm doing here? And then you're actually creating a structure. But first, it's always the goal. And second is always, who is my audience? And then you go from there. And of course, if you have the opportunity, get help. Like if you're just starting out, get somebody to help you. It can be everything from YouTube to blogs or to getting a coach, or you can work with me. Like it's all kinds of things that you can get, but educate yourself. It's like everything. It's like learning to ride a bike or learning to
Totally.
ski. You don't do it by yourself.
Totally. One of my early collaboration partners always used to say, when in doubt, reach out. If you're ever in doubt or you're feeling scared, reach out. There's all kinds of experts out there. And now that we can work from anywhere, right? Sky's the limit. You can find whatever you need. And so, Ronny, just to end, I just wanted to, the last question that I'm going to ask you is, where can people find you online? Which, of course, I'll put your website in the show notes, but I just wanted to mention that on your website, you've got this amazing free checklist for the event host scout that people. So it says, stop guessing about your ideal event host. So I just want to encourage people to go to your website. Clearly, you have real expertise in this area, so they can't go wrong. So again, last question is, if people want to find you online, like where is a great place to find you besides your website?
Yeah. Well, also at the website, there's also a blog. And I actually have a free gift for everybody right now listening, ronnyleber.com/gift. That's where you can find that easily. And of course, social media. Find me there. Find me on, well, anywhere from Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. You
You've got
got
it
it.
all?
Exactly.
It's a lot of work maintaining all that. Love it. That's a different question for another time. Ronny, thank you so much. I took copious notes throughout the conversation, so I really look forward to putting these all together in the show notes with you. Thank you for sharing your time and your tips today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And until next time, everybody, be powerful.